Ambassador Chun Wei walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the enormous hall. Above him, thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, each one filled with representatives from across the galaxy. But Chun's seat was different. It sat at the very bottom, in the lowest tier, marked with a simple sign that read, Human Territory, Earth Sector. The chamber buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Translators hummed in Chun's ear, turning the alien words into something he could understand. Most of what he heard made his jaw tighten with anger, but his face stayed calm. After 30 years as Earth's ambassador, he had learned to hide his feelings well. "Look, the pet humans are here again," said a voice from above. Chun didn't need to look up to know it came from the Xanthari section. The Xanthari were tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. They thought they were better than everyone else because their civilization was 10,000 years old. "What do they want this time?" laughed another Xanthari voice. "More scraps from our table?" Chun took his seat and placed his datapad on the small desk in front of him. Today, he would ask the council for something his people had wanted for 300 years. Access to the hyperspace trade routes. The right to travel freely between star systems. The chance to build something more than mining colonies and waste processing stations. High above, the council speaker called the session to order. She was a Valkani, a species that looked like walking trees with golden bark. Her voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. "The council recognizes the human representative," she announced. "You may speak." Chun stood and activated his microphone. "Thank you, Speaker. I come before this council today to request consideration for humanity's application to access Level 2 hyperspace lanes." The chamber erupted in laughter. Not polite chuckling, but loud, mocking laughter that echoed off the walls. Chun waited for it to die down. "We have submitted all required documentation," Chun continued. "Our ships meet safety standards. Our pilots have passed all tests. We have paid all fees. Safety standards?" called out High Counselor Vex Thai of the Xanthari Empire. His voice dripped with amusement. "Your ships are barely capable of short-range hops. Your technology is primitive at best." More laughter filled the chamber. Chun looked up at the Xanthari section. Vex Thai was an old alien, even by their standards. His blue skin was darker with age, and silver markings covered his face. He had been on this council for longer than humans had known about alien life. "Counselor Vex Thai," Chun replied, keeping his voice steady. "Our technology may be newer than yours, but it works. We have successfully operated mining colonies in 17 systems. We have cleaned toxic waste from 43 planets. We have—" Yes. Vex Thai interrupted with a wave of his 4 hands. "You have done the jobs we gave you. The dangerous jobs. The dirty jobs. The jobs that no civilized species would do themselves." The chamber filled with approving sounds from dozens of species. Chun felt heat rising in his chest, but his training kept him calm. "We have proven our reliability," Chun said. "We ask only for the chance to trade and explore like other species." "Other species?" Vex Thai stood up in his high seat. Even from this distance, Chun could see the alien's eyes glowing with cruel amusement. Other species earned their place through thousands of years of development. Through culture, through art, through philosophy. What have humans contributed to galactic civilization? Chun opened his mouth to answer, but Vex Thai continued. "You are a young race. A violent race. Your own planet still bears scars from your wars. Your history is written in blood and destruction. Perhaps when you evolve past your primitive aggression, little apes, we might consider treating you as equals." The words hit Chun like a physical blow. Little apes. It was their favorite insult for humans. The chamber erupted in laughter again, louder this time. Chun looked around at thousands of alien faces, all showing the same expression: amusement, superiority, contempt. Chun had heard these words before. Every human in the galaxy had heard them. For 3 centuries, since first contact with the Xanthari in 2087, humanity had been treated as servants. They mined dangerous asteroids because their bodies could handle the radiation better than most aliens. They cleaned up toxic waste because they reproduced quickly and could replace losses. They did the jobs that killed people because, in the eyes of the galaxy, human lives were worth less than others. "The Council will consider the human request," the speaker announced, though everyone knew what that meant. The request would sit in files for years and be quietly rejected. Chun sat down slowly. Around him, the Council moved on to other business. Trade agreements between the Xanthari and the crystal cities of Andromeda. New exploration rights for the Vulcani Confederation. Military cooperation between the great powers. But Chun wasn't listening anymore. He was thinking about the message he had received that morning from Admiral Sarah Mitchell. A message that had arrived through channels the aliens didn't know existed. Channels that had been built carefully over decades by humans who understood that patience had limits. The message was simple. 3 words: time is coming. Chun touched the small device hidden in his jacket pocket. A recording device that had captured every word, every laugh, every insult from today's session. This recording would join thousands of others, spread through hidden networks to human colonies across the galaxy. To miners risking their lives for alien profit. To workers cleaning up alien mistakes. To families who had lost members to alien carelessness and faced only laughter in response. As the council session ended, Chun stood with the other representatives. He bowed politely to the speaker and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he could hear Xanthari voices still joking about primitive humans and their amusing requests. Chun smiled for the first time that day. Let them laugh. Let them think humans were harmless pets who would always obey. Let them believe their own lies about human weakness and stupidity. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable of. And when that day came, the laughter would stop forever. The alarm bells rang across mining colony Kepler 442b like screaming metal birds. Sarah Chun pulled on her work suit and ran toward the mine entrance. Around her, other human miners did the same. The red lights flashing in the tunnel meant emergency. It meant someone was in danger. Sarah was not related to Ambassador Chen Wei, but she carried the same anger in her heart. For 12 years, she had worked in the deepest parts of this mine, pulling rare metals from rock while Xanthari overseers watched from safe platforms above. "Move faster, humans," shouted Overseer Kralvex from his floating platform. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights. "The gas pocket in Tunnel 7 needs clearing." Sarah stopped running. So did the 46 other miners behind her. Tunnel 7. Everyone knew about Tunnel 7. The scanners had detected dangerous gases there 2 weeks ago. Gases that would explode if disturbed. Gases that would kill anyone nearby. "Sir," said Marcus Webb, the human team leader. He was an older man with gray hair and scars on his hands from 20 years of mining. "The gas readings are still too high. Our equipment shows." "Your equipment?" Kralvex laughed, and his voice echoed off the tunnel walls. "Human equipment is garbage. Our scans show the area is safe enough." "Safe enough for what?" Marcus asked. "Safe enough for humans," said another overseer, this one floating down from a higher platform. "You reproduce quickly. You can replace losses. That is why expendable species should handle expendable tasks." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. She looked at the other miners. They all understood. The Xanthari weren't saying the tunnel was safe. They were saying human lives didn't matter enough to worry about. "We need proper protective gear," Marcus said. And we need to vent the gases first. Too expensive, Krovix replied. Too slow. The Zentari Empire needs those metals by next week. Either you go in now, or we send you all back to Earth. See how you like unemployment. Sarah knew what that meant. Earth was overcrowded. Jobs were scarce. This mining colony was home to thousands of human families. If the overseers sent them back, their children would starve. Sir, Marcus tried one more time. Just give us 12 more hours. We can vent the gases safely, and no. Krovex's voice was final. You have your orders. Obey them. Sarah watched Marcus's face change. She saw the moment when 3 decades of patience finally broke. She saw him look at his team, at people he had worked with for years. People who trusted him to keep them safe. Everyone gear up, Marcus said quietly. Standard equipment only. They won't give us anything better. The miners walked toward Tunnel 7 like soldiers marching to war. Sarah strapped on her basic breathing mask and checked her cutting tools. Behind her, she could hear the overseers talking in their own language. She didn't need a translator to understand their tone. They were making bets. Betting on how many humans would die today. The tunnel was dark and narrow. The air tasted wrong, even through the breathing mask. Sarah's scanner beeped warnings constantly, showing gas levels that should have kept anyone away. But they had orders. Orders from species that saw them as disposable. Marcus led them deeper into the tunnel. He was the first to reach the gas pocket. A natural chamber filled with explosive gases that had leaked from deep underground. The place where they were supposed to work. Readings are off the scale, whispered Maria Santos, the team's safety officer. This will kill us all. I know, Marcus said. His voice was tired. But they don't care. Sarah looked back toward the tunnel entrance. The overseers had moved their platforms even further away. They knew what was going to happen. They had always known. That was when Marcus made his choice. Instead of starting work, he turned on his emergency communicator. Every human in the mine could hear him. This is Marcus Webb in Tunnel 7, he said. Gas levels are at explosion point. The Zentari overseers know this. They ordered us in any way. They are betting on how many of us will die. His words echoed through the mine. In the control rooms above, overseers scrambled to cut the communication. But Marcus wasn't finished. This is being recorded, he continued. If we die today, let everyone know it was not an accident. It was murder. Then he began to work. Because he had to. Because his family needed this job. Because there was nowhere else to go. The explosion came 20 minutes later. Sarah felt the ground shake. She saw the flash of light. She heard the screams. Then everything went black. When she woke up, she was in the medical station. Her body hurt everywhere, but she was alive. 12 other miners were alive too. Marcus Webb was not. Neither were 34 others. Through the medical station windows, Sarah could see the Zentari overseers on their platforms. They were laughing. Actually laughing. One of them was counting money, apparently winning his bet. That was when Sarah heard another voice on her communicator. A voice she didn't recognize. Speaking on a frequency that wasn't supposed to exist. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Human Liberation Fleet. We have received the recording from Mining Colony. Kepler 442b. The time for patience is over. Sarah stared at her communicator. Liberation Fleet? She had never heard of any Liberation Fleet. For 300 years, the voice continued, we have endured. We have served. We have died for their convenience. We have tried diplomacy. We have followed their rules. We have been the galaxy's servants, cleaning up their messes and risking our lives for their profit. On the platforms outside, the Zentari overseers had stopped laughing. They were listening too. Today, 47 human beings died because aliens thought their lives were worthless. Today, those same aliens laughed at their deaths. Today, our patience ends. Sarah felt something change inside her chest. Something that had been sleeping for a long time was waking up. To every human in the galaxy, Admiral Mitchell continued, the time has come. We are not servants. We are not disposable. We are not their pets. And we are not alone. The transmission ended, but Sarah kept listening. Around the galaxy, other voices began speaking on hidden channels. Voices from colonies she had never heard of. Voices talking about ships and weapons and plans that had been growing in secret for decades. Outside her window, the Xanthari overseers were no longer laughing. They were making urgent calls to their superiors, their voices full of panic. Sarah smiled for the first time in years. The 47 miners had not died for nothing. Their deaths had been the spark that lit a fire across the stars. The war had begun. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching the main screen show Vega Station growing larger. The massive Xanthari military base floated in space like a metal city, bristling with weapons and surrounded by patrol ships. Intelligence reports said 2,000 Xanthari warships called this place home. Sarah commanded a fleet of only 200 human vessels. On paper, it looked like suicide. Admiral, said Captain Torres from the communications station, we're receiving surrender demands from Vega Station. They're ordering us to power down our weapons and prepare to be boarded. Are they? Sarah smiled. Send them our reply. Torres nodded and opened the channel. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Human Liberation Fleet. You have 3 minutes to evacuate all non-combat personnel from Vega Station. After that, we consider it a military target. The response came back immediately. Laughter. The same cruel laughter humans had heard for 3 centuries. Human fleet, came the Xanthari commander's voice. You are outnumbered 10 to 1. You pilot garbage ships with primitive weapons. Surrender now, and we will only execute your officers. Sarah looked around her bridge. Her crew was young by Admiral standards. Most of them had been born on mining colonies or waste processing stations. They had grown up hearing that same laughter, watching their parents bow to alien overseers who saw them as expendable tools. Navigation, Sarah said calmly. Execute Battle Plan Omega. Yes, Admiral. What happened next shocked the Xanthari so badly that many of their officers would later claim they had hallucinated the entire battle. The human fleet simply vanished, not scattered, not retreated. Vanished. 200 ships disappeared from sensors as if they had never existed. What trickery is this? Demanded Commander Zektar from Vega Station. Where did they go? His question was answered when the first human ship cloaked directly behind a Xanthari patrol vessel and fired. The alien ship exploded in a ball of bright plasma. Then another human ship appeared, destroyed its target, and vanished again. Impossible, Zektar whispered. Stealth technology doesn't work at this level. Our sensors should. His words were cut off as explosions erupted across his fleet. Human ships were appearing and disappearing like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before return fire could target them. The secret was simple. For 300 years, humans had been mining in the most dangerous parts of space. They had learned to work in areas with radiation that scrambled sensors. They had developed ways to hide their ships in asteroid fields and gas clouds. They had perfected techniques that no other species needed, because no other species was forced to work in such deadly conditions. Those techniques had been refined, improved, turned into weapons. All ships, Sarah commanded. Proceed to Phase 2. Across the battlefield, human vessels decloaked simultaneously. But now they were in different positions. Positions that the Zentari fleet's own tactics manual said were impossible to reach. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the UHS Retribution, a ship that had been disguised as a mining vessel for 15 years. While the Zentari thought humans only built slow, clumsy transports, they had actually been constructing warships designed for speed and stealth. "Target their command ship," Elena ordered. "Fire quantum missiles." The Zentari had never seen quantum missiles before. They watched in horror as the weapons passed through their shields like they didn't exist and tore apart their flagship from the inside. How? Commander Zektar gasped as his ship died around him. Human technology is primitive. The answer to his question was spread across 100 human colonies. While aliens thought humans were only good for dangerous labor, human scientists had been working in secret. They had used their access to alien technology, their experience with deadly environments, and their talent for innovation to create weapons the galaxy had never imagined. On the UHS Defiance, Sarah watched the tactical display show Zentari ships exploding one by one. Her fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. They had practiced these maneuvers for decades in asteroid fields, where one mistake meant death. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "Zentari reinforcements are arriving. 3 more battle groups, about 600 ships total." "Perfect," Sarah replied. "Signal the other fleets. Begin simultaneous operations." Across the galaxy, similar battles were starting. At the Vulcani shipyards above Proxima Centauri, at the trading stations of the Crystal Cities, at military bases belonging to every species that had spent centuries treating humans as servants, the aliens had made a crucial mistake. They thought keeping humans scattered across the galaxy would prevent them from organizing. Instead, it had given humans access to every major military installation in known space. General Marcus Thompson, Sarah's old friend from the mining colonies, led the assault on the Zentari fortress world of Kethvar. His ground forces had trained in conditions that would kill most aliens. They moved through toxic atmospheres and radiation fields like they were walking in a park. "Enemy bunkers neutralized," Marcus reported from the planet's surface. "Zentari defenders are requesting terms for surrender." Similar reports came from a dozen worlds. The species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were discovering that their primitive servants had become the most dangerous military force in known space. On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions of the former Galactic Council devolved into panic and chaos. "How did we not know?" demanded High Counselor Veshthai, the same alien who had mocked Ambassador Chen Wei months earlier. "How did they hide fleets?" "They didn't hide fleets," replied Intelligence Director Morden, a nervous Vulcani whose bark-like skin was turning gray with stress. "They built them inside asteroid mining operations. They disguised warships as cargo vessels. They used their access to our facilities to gather intelligence for decades. And their technology? Revolutionary. Their stealth systems are generations ahead of ours. Their weapons ignore our shields. Their tactics." Morden paused, his voice shaking. "Their tactics are based on survival in conditions we can't imagine. They fight like they have nothing to lose." "Because they don't," said a quiet voice from the chamber's lower tier. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Chen Wei, who had remained silent throughout the emergency session. "For 300 years, Chen continued. Standing slowly, you treated us as expendable. You sent us to die in your mines, to clean up your mistakes, to risk our lives for your convenience. You called us primitive apes and laughed at our deaths." His voice was calm, but it carried clearly through the silent chamber. "Now you discover that species who have nothing to lose fight harder than those who have everything to protect. You trained us to survive in impossible conditions. You gave us access to your technology while thinking we were too stupid to understand it. You scattered us across the galaxy while believing we were too primitive to coordinate. Chun smiled, and for the first time in his diplomatic career, it was not a polite smile. Congratulations. You created your own worst nightmare. And we're just getting started. Captain Liu Jiang of the UHS Liberation watched through his viewport as the rescue ships descended toward the prison planet, Carrick 7. For 2 centuries, this world had been where the Zentari Empire sent undesirable species. Races that asked too many questions. Peoples who refused to accept their assigned place in the galactic hierarchy. Medical teams are reporting massive malnutrition among the prisoners, reported Chief Medical Officer Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Some of these beings haven't seen proper food in decades. Liu's jaw tightened. Carrick 7 was supposed to be a labor camp. Instead, they had found something closer to a death camp. Millions of aliens from hundreds of species, all slowly dying while mining radioactive minerals for their Zentari captors. Captain, called Lieutenant Kim from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's not Zentari. Put it through. The voice that came over the speakers was weak but filled with desperate hope. Human ships? Is this real? Are you really here? This is Captain Liu Jiang of the Human Liberation Fleet. Who am I speaking with? Architect Zephyr of the Crystalline Collective. We have been here for 43 years. They told us humans were servants. They said you would never fight back. Liu smiled grimly. They were wrong about a lot of things. We're here to get you out. Across 3 galactic arms, similar scenes were playing out. Human fleets arrived at prison worlds, slave colonies, and forced labor camps. They found millions of beings from species the galaxy had forgotten. Peoples whose only crime had been refusing to bow to Zentari. Superiority. Admiral Sarah Mitchell coordinated the liberation operations from her mobile command center. A massive ship hidden in the dangerous nebula cloud of Sector 7. Around her, holographic displays showed the expanding rebellion. Report from General Thompson on Kethvar, announced Commander Rodriguez. The Zentari garrison has surrendered. Local population is requesting to join our alliance. Report from Admiral Chun's fleet in the Andromeda Spiral. The Crystal Cities have officially withdrawn from their pact with the Zentari Empire. They're offering to share their trade networks with liberated worlds. Report from Captain Santos in the Outer Rim. The mining guilds are declaring independence. They're ready to provide resources for our war effort. Sarah nodded at each report. The rebellion was growing faster than anyone had expected. It turned out the galaxy was full of species that had been waiting centuries for someone to challenge the old order, but the most important news came from an unexpected source. Admiral, said Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief intelligence officer. We've intercepted Zentari military communications. They're planning to use planet killers. The bridge went silent. Planet killers were weapons so terrible that most civilized species had agreed never to build them. They could destroy entire worlds, turning billions of lives into cosmic dust. Where are they planning to use them? Sarah asked. Earth, Admiral, and 12 other major human colonies. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. The Zentari were planning to commit genocide, to end the human rebellion by ending humanity itself. How long do we have? Their fleet is assembling now. 3 days, maybe 4. Sarah looked around her bridge at officers who had spent their lives fighting for the right to exist. Now, they faced the possibility that their entire species might be erased from the galaxy. Send a message to all human fleets, she ordered. Operation. Final answer is now active. What the Zentari didn't know was that humans had spent decades infiltrating their most secure facilities. Human workers had repaired their computers, cleaned their bases, and maintained their weapons. Workers who the aliens thought were too primitive to understand what they were doing. Commander Maria Santos led the infiltration team aboard the Centauri super dreadnought Inevitable Victory. The ship was one of 5 vessels carrying planet-killer weapons toward human space. Security is minimal, Maria reported through her encrypted communicator. They don't think anyone can reach them out here. She and her team moved through the ship's corridors dressed as maintenance workers. For 3 years, Maria had actually worked on this ship, fixing life support systems while Centauri officers treated her like furniture. "Charges are set," whispered Sergeant Park. "We can take out their main reactor." "Negative," Maria replied. "We're not destroying the ship. We're taking it." In the engine room, Technical Specialist Johnson was already at work on the ship's computer systems. For years, he had fixed these same computers while their alien operators made jokes about human intelligence. They had never bothered to change their access codes or security protocols around their harmless human servants. "Control systems are mine," Johnson announced. "I can lock out their command interfaces." Across the Centauri fleet, similar operations were happening. Human workers, who had been invisible for decades, suddenly revealed themselves as highly trained soldiers and saboteurs. Admiral Kreltha of the Centauri Superfleet was reviewing attack plans when his ship's computer systems suddenly shut down. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir," called his communications officer, "all ships are reporting system failures. Weapons offline, navigation offline, life support switching to emergency power." How is this possible? His question was answered when every screen on his bridge displayed the same image: a human face. "Attention Centauri fleet," said Admiral Sarah Mitchell. "This is your only warning. You are surrounded by human vessels that you cannot detect. Your ships are under our control. Your planet-killer weapons are now in our hands." Admiral Krell looked out his viewport and saw nothing but empty space. "Impossible. Our sensors show no enemy ships." "Your sensors show what we want them to show," Sarah continued. "For 3 centuries, you have threatened us with extinction. You have called us primitive. You have treated our lives as worthless." The main screen on Krelthas Bridge changed to show tactical readouts. Dozens of human ships were decloaking around the Centauri fleet, appearing from what had looked like empty space. "Today, we could destroy you all," Sarah said. "We could turn your ships into debris and your crews into memories. We have the power to end your civilization the same way you plan to end ours." Kreltha watched his officers panic as they realized their fleet was completely helpless. "But we won't," Sarah continued, "because we are not you. We do not commit genocide. We do not destroy entire worlds because we dislike their inhabitants. Instead, we offer you a choice. Surrender your weapons and join the new galactic order as equals, or face the consequences of your actions. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended, leaving the Centauri fleet floating helplessly in space across the galaxy. The news spread like wildfire. The Centauri Empire's ultimate weapon had been turned against them. Their most secure fleet had been captured without firing a shot. The species they had called primitive apes had outmaneuvered, outfought, and outsmarted them at every turn. On Nexus Prime, emergency meetings dissolved into chaos as member species rushed to contact human representatives. Everyone wanted to negotiate. Everyone wanted to be on the winning side. High Counselor Vexthai sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports from across his crumbling empire. Colony after colony was declaring independence. Fleet after fleet was surrendering to human forces. The civilization he had served for 2 centuries was falling apart in a matter of days. A chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his chambers. "Come," he called wearily to his surprise. Ambassador Chen Wei entered the room. "You," Vestai said, "come to gloat over our defeat?" Chen walked slowly across the room and sat in the chair opposite the fallen counselor. "No," he replied. "I came to make you an offer." "What could you possibly offer me?" "A chance to help build something better than what we're destroying." 3 years had passed since the last Centauri fleet surrendered to human forces. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime looked very different now. Instead of rising tiers that separated species by perceived importance, round tables filled the floor where representatives from hundreds of worlds sat as equals. President Chen Wei stood at the podium in the center of the chamber. No longer an ambassador begging for scraps, he had been elected as the first leader of the Democratic Federation of Worlds. Around him, former enemies and new allies listened to his words with the respect that had been denied to humanity for 3 centuries. Today marks the 3rd anniversary of the Liberation War's end, Chan began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 years ago, many of you saw humans as servants, as primitive beings fit only for dangerous labor. Some of you laughed when we died. Some of you made bets on how many of us would perish in your minds. The chamber was silent. Chun could see shame on many alien faces, but also hope. Today, I do not speak to you as a conqueror. I speak as a partner in building something the galaxy has never seen before. A civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. On merit instead of birth. On justice instead of power. At a table near the front, former High Counselor Vexthai sat with the other Centauri representatives. His blue skin had faded with age and defeat, but his eyes showed something that had never been there during the old regime: humility. Vexthai raised one of his 4 hands. "President Chun, may I speak?" Chun nodded. The floor recognizes Representative Vexthai of the Centauri Republic. Vexthai stood slowly. Around the chamber, thousands of beings watched the alien who had once been the symbol of galactic oppression. 3 years ago, I called humans little apes, Vexthai said, his voice heavy with regret. I told you that you were too primitive to deserve respect. I was wrong about everything. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that represented species from across the galaxy. We thought strength came from making others bow to us. We thought wisdom came from age and tradition. We thought power gave us the right to decide who lived and who died. His voice grew stronger. You taught us that true strength comes from lifting others up. That wisdom comes from learning and adapting. That power without justice is just another form of barbarism. Vexthai turned to face Chun directly. We created our own nemesis by refusing to see your true nature. You were never the servants. We were the fools. Gentle applause filled the chamber. Not the mocking laughter of the old council, but the respectful acknowledgement of honest words. Chun smiled. Thank you, Representative Vexthai. Your words show why the Centauri Republic has become a valued member of our Federation. The business of the session continued. Trade agreements between former enemies. Joint exploration missions to distant galaxies. Cultural exchange programs that would have been unthinkable under the old regime. Admiral Sarah Mitchell, now serving as the Federation's Minister of Defense, presented the latest report on galactic security. Piracy is down 90% across all major trade routes. The joint patrol fleets are working better than anyone expected. It was true. Ships that had been built for war now serve together to keep the peace. Human stealth technology protected trade convoys while alien defensive systems provided backup. Former enemies worked side by side, their different strengths making them more effective together than apart. The medical exchange program has been equally successful, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, now the Federation's chief medical officer. Xanthari regenerative technology combined with human adaptability research has produced treatments for diseases that plagued the galaxy for millennia. After the session ended, Chun walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime toward his private office. The walls were lined with art from dozens of worlds, gifts from species that wanted to show their commitment to the new order. In his office, Chun found an unexpected visitor waiting for him. Sarah Chun, the mining colony survivor who had become a symbol of human resilience during the war. "Sarah," Chun said warmly, "how are the memorial preparations going?" "Almost ready," she replied. "The families of all 47 miners will be there tomorrow." Tomorrow marked the anniversary of the Kepler 442b mining disaster, the event that had finally pushed humanity past its breaking point. The Federation was building a memorial on the site, honoring not just the human miners who had died, but all the beings who had suffered under the old regime. "President Chun," Sarah said quietly, "do you think they would be proud of what we've built?" Chun looked out his office window at the city below. Humans and aliens walked the streets together. Children of different species played in the parks. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was better than anything the galaxy had ever known. "I think Marcus Webb would be amazed," Chun replied. "He died believing his sacrifice might wake people up to the injustice around them. I don't think he ever imagined it would change the entire galaxy." The next day, beings from across the Federation gathered at the memorial site on Kepler 442b. The mine had been sealed and turned into a garden where children could play safely. At its center stood a simple monument listing the names of everyone who had died fighting for freedom. Chun read the inscription aloud. They gave their lives so that others might live as equals. Their sacrifice taught the galaxy that patience, once broken, becomes the most powerful force in the universe. As the ceremony ended, Chun watched human and alien children running together through the garden that had grown where the deadly mine once operated. Above them, ships from a dozen species provided protection for the celebration. A young Xanthari girl approached Chen, holding her human friend's hand. "President Chun," she said in careful English, "my grandmother says you knew the people who died here." Chun knelt down to her level. "I did know them. They were brave people who wanted a better world for children like you. Did they get it?" the human boy asked. Chun looked around at the mixed crowd of families, at former enemies sharing food and stories, at children who had never known the fear and hatred that had once defined galactic civilization. "Yes," he said simply. "I think they did." That evening, Chun stood on the observation deck of his transport ship as it carried him back to Earth. Through the viewport, he could see the lights of human colonies and alien settlements scattered across the stellar neighborhood. Once, those lights had represented isolation and servitude. Now they were beacons of hope and cooperation. His communication device chimed with a message from Admiral Mitchell. "Chun, you need to see the latest exploration reports. Our joint expedition with the Crystalline Collective found something incredible in the Magellanic Clouds. New worlds, new possibilities, new friends to make." Chun smiled and replied, "Schedule the meeting. The galaxy is full of wonders we haven't discovered yet." As his ship entered hyperspace toward Earth, Chun reflected on the journey from that day in the old council chamber when he'd been mocked and dismissed. Humanity had traveled a long road from servants to partners, from victims to leaders, from isolation to belonging. The war was over. The laughter had stopped. And across the galaxy, billions of beings slept safely knowing that tomorrow would be better than today. For the first time in galactic history, the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Justice mattered more than power. Hope had replaced fear. It wasn't perfect. It might never be perfect, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, Chun thought, as he watched the star stream past his window, a beginning was everything.